My name is Patricia Webb, and at 32, I thought I had found my calling as a registered nurse in the cardiac unit at Pinewood Medical Center in Forest Hills, North Carolina. The sprawling medical complex sat nestled among the pine trees that gave our town its name, its red brick facade promising healing and hope to the thousands of patients who walk through our doors each year. I had been working at Pinewood for 3 years when the first subtle signs began to appear. Nothing dramatic, just small inconsistencies that made me pause during my 12-hour shifts. Patient charts that didn't quite match the billing codes I glimpsed on computer screens. Medication orders that seemed unnecessarily expensive when cheaper alternatives existed. Supply closets that were perpetually understocked despite our department's healthy budget allocation. The cardiac unit operated like a well-oiled machine under the supervision of Destiny Martinez, our charge nurse and my mentor since my first day. Destiny had taken me under her wing when I was fresh out of nursing school, teaching me everything from proper IV insertion techniques to navigating the complex politics of hospital administration. She was the kind of nurse who stayed late to help struggling colleagues, who remembered every patient's name, and who fought fiercely for proper staffing ratios during budget meetings. Our unit used the Epic electronic health record system, and Destiny had helped me master its intricacies. She showed me shortcuts for documentation, taught me how to efficiently navigate between patient charts, and even helped me set up my login credentials during my orientation. "The computer system is your lifeline here," she had told me. "Master it, and you'll never fall behind on your documentation." The first time I noticed something odd was during a particularly busy Tuesday evening shift. I was updating a patient's medication administration record when I noticed the billing code displayed didn't match the medication I had just given. When I mentioned it to Destiny, she quickly explained it was probably a system glitch, something that happened occasionally with Epic's automatic coding features. "Don't worry about it, Patricia," she had said, her voice carrying that reassuring tone I had come to trust completely. "The billing department will catch any errors during their monthly audits. Our job is patient care, not accounting." But the discrepancies kept appearing. A cardiac catheterization procedure coded as a more expensive intervention. Generic medications billed as brand-name drugs. Even simple supplies like IV bags seemed to carry premium pricing in our system. Each time I brought these observations to Destiny, she had a reasonable explanation. System updates causing temporary coding errors. New billing protocols being implemented gradually. The complexity of insurance requirements creating apparent inconsistencies. I wanted to believe her explanations. Destiny Martinez had been my professional North Star, the colleague I aspired to become. She had covered my patient load when I had to leave early for family emergencies, had written glowing performance reviews that helped me secure my permanent position, and had recommended me for the Advanced Cardiac Care Certification program. Questioning her felt like questioning my own judgment. The atmosphere in our unit began to feel different as autumn settled over Forest Hills. Conversations seemed to stop when I entered the break room. Colleagues who had been friendly suddenly seemed distant. Even the usually chatty respiratory therapists and physical therapy staff appeared guarded around me. I told myself it was my imagination, that the stress of our demanding work environment was making me paranoid. But then came the morning when I couldn't log into my computer terminal. My badge worked fine for accessing doors and the medication dispensing system, but Epic repeatedly rejected my password. The IT help desk said there was no record of any system issues, and my account showed no unusual activity. Destiny helped me use her login to complete my morning documentation, explaining that these technical glitches happen sometimes and would likely resolve themselves by the next shift. They didn't resolve. For 3 consecutive shifts, I found myself locked out of the system during critical documentation periods, always during the busiest times when patient care demanded immediate attention. Each time, Destiny graciously allowed me to use her computer access, standing beside me as I hurriedly entered vital signs, medication records, and nursing notes. It was during one of these shared computer sessions that I noticed something that made my blood run cold. As Destiny quickly closed several windows on her screen before letting me access my patient charts, I caught a glimpse of a billing modification screen I had never seen before. The numbers displayed were staggering, thousands of dollars in procedure codes being adjusted, medication costs being inflated, supply charges being multiplied. The silence in the cardiac unit that evening felt heavier than usual, pressing down on me like the weight of a secret I wasn't supposed to know. The next morning, I arrived at Pinewood Medical Center 30 minutes early, hoping to catch the IT department before the day shift chaos began. The parking lot was nearly empty, with only a few scattered cars belonging to the night staff finishing their rounds. The October air carried the scent of dying leaves and the promise of winter, but inside the hospital, the familiar smell of antiseptic and floor wax provided its usual sterile comfort. I had worked alongside Destiny Martinez for nearly 2 years, ever since I transferred to the cardiac unit from General Medical Surgical. She had been my lifeline during those overwhelming first weeks, teaching me the intricate rhythms of cardiac monitoring, the subtle signs of patient deterioration, and the complex medication protocols that kept our patients stable. When my grandmother had her stroke last spring, Destiny had covered my patient load without question, staying late to ensure continuity of care. When I struggled with the Advanced Cardiac Life Support recertification, she had spent her lunch breaks helping me practice algorithms until I could recite them in my sleep. The trust between us had been built through countless shared experiences, the 3 a.m. emergencies where we worked seamlessly together, the difficult family conversations where she provided emotional support, the moments of dark humor that helped us cope with the weight of our responsibilities. She had been more than a mentor. She had become the older sister I never had, someone whose judgment I trusted implicitly. But now, as I sat in the IT office explaining my persistent login issues to Gregory Martinez, the systems administrator, I couldn't shake the image of those billing screens from the night before. Gregory was thorough, running diagnostics on my account while I watched the lines of code scroll across his monitor. His findings were puzzling. My account showed multiple failed login attempts during times when I wasn't even in the building, suggesting someone had been trying to access my credentials. "This is unusual," Gregory said, adjusting his glasses as he studied the access logs. "Your account has been locked and unlocked several times over the past week, but there's no record of you contacting the help desk for assistance. Someone with administrative privileges has been manipulating your access permissions." The implications of his words settled over me like a cold fog. Only a handful of people in our unit had administrative access to the Epic system, and Destiny was one of them as our charge nurse. The timing of my lockouts suddenly made perfect sense. They had occurred precisely when I needed to document critical patient information, forcing me to rely on her computer access. I returned to the cardiac unit with a temporary password and a growing sense of. The morning report proceeded normally, with Destiny assigning patient loads and reviewing overnight events with her usual competence and attention to detail. She asked about my computer issues with what seemed like genuine concern, suggesting I might need to change my password more frequently for security purposes. Throughout the morning, I found myself observing interactions I had previously taken for granted. When the billing department called with questions about procedure codes, Destiny handled the conversations privately in her office. When pharmaceutical representatives visited to discuss new cardiac medications, she met with them alone, explaining that she preferred to review information before sharing it with the team. These behaviors had never seemed suspicious before, but now they took on a different significance. The breakthrough came during lunch when I decided to review my own patient billing records. As a nurse, I rarely looked at the financial aspects of patient care, but something compelled me to examine the charges associated with my recent patients. What I discovered made my hands tremble as I scrolled through the itemized lists. Patients I had cared for showed charges for procedures I had never witnessed, medications I had never administered, and supplies I had never used. A patient who had received basic cardiac monitoring was billed for advanced electrophysiology studies. Another, who had been admitted for chest pain evaluation, showed charges for cardiac catheterization procedures that had never occurred. The pattern was consistent across multiple patients, always involving high-cost procedures and medications that would significantly inflate the hospital's revenue. The most disturbing discovery was that many of these fraudulent charges were entered using my login credentials during the times when Destiny had graciously allowed me to use her computer. My electronic signature was attached to documentation I had never created, authorizing procedures I had never witnessed. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't just witnessing fraud. I was being systematically framed as the perpetrator. That afternoon, I watched Destiny with new eyes as she moved through her duties with practiced efficiency. She reviewed patient charts with the same careful attention she had always shown, discussed treatment plans with physicians using the same clinical expertise I had come to respect, and interacted with families with the same compassionate professionalism that had made her a role model for younger nurses. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. How could someone who provided such excellent patient care be systematically defrauding the hospital and setting up a colleague to take the blame? The answer came to me gradually as I observed the subtle ways she controlled information flow within our unit. Destiny had positioned herself as the gatekeeper for all administrative communications, the person who interfaced with billing, quality assurance, and hospital administration. Her reputation for competence and reliability meant that her word was rarely questioned, her documentation rarely scrutinized. She had built a perfect system for financial manipulation, hidden within the chaos and complexity of modern healthcare. As my shift ended that evening, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going home, I returned to the IT office where Gregory was finishing his day. I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening, and I needed that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. Gregory agreed to stay late, his curiosity piqued by the unusual patterns we had discovered in my account. What we found over the next 2 hours was a sophisticated scheme that had been operating for months. Destiny had been using her administrative access to temporarily lock nursing accounts during critical documentation periods, forcing her colleagues to use her computer for patient charting. During these shared sessions, she would quickly enter fraudulent billing codes and procedure authorizations, using the legitimate nurse's credentials to create an electronic paper trail that pointed away from herself. The scheme was brilliant in its simplicity and devastating in its scope. Dozens of nurses had been unknowingly implicated in billing fraud, their electronic signatures attached to documentation they had never created. The financial impact was staggering. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent charges spread across multiple departments and patient populations. As Gregory and I compiled our core, printing screen captures and access logs that documented the systematic manipulation, I felt a mixture of relief and betrayal that threatened to overwhelm me. Relief that I finally understood what had been happening, that the growing sense of and paranoia had been justified. Betrayal that someone I had trusted completely, someone who had been my mentor and friend, had been using that trust to destroy my professional reputation and potentially my career. The cardiac unit felt different when I returned the next morning, armed with knowledge that changed everything. Destiny greeted me with her usual warm smile, asking about my evening and commenting on the beautiful autumn weather. Her concerns seemed genuine when she inquired about my computer access, and her relief appeared authentic when I confirmed that IT had resolved the issues. The performance was flawless, but now I could see it for what it was, a carefully constructed facade, hiding a calculating mind that had turned healthcare into a personal profit center. The weight of what I knew pressed down on me as I went through the motions of my shift, providing patient care while mentally preparing for the confrontation that was inevitable. The silence in the unit no longer felt comfortable. It felt ominous, heavy, with secrets that were about to be exposed. The confrontation came sooner than I had anticipated. Gregory and I had agreed to present our Chief Nursing Officer Catherine Martinez first thing Monday morning, but destiny forced our hand when she approached me during Friday's evening shift with an expression I had never seen before. Cold calculation replacing her usual warmth. "Patricia, we need to talk," she said, her voice carrying an edge that made my stomach clench. "Privately." She led me to the empty conference room where we had shared so many mentoring sessions, where she had taught me the intricacies of cardiac care and helped shape my professional identity. The irony wasn't lost on me as she closed the door and turned to face me with eyes that held no trace of the woman who had covered my patient load during family emergencies. "I know you've been asking questions," she said without preamble, "and I know you've been talking to Gregory from IT." My training kicked in. The same composure that served me well during medical emergencies now helped me maintain steady eye contact despite my racing heart. "I've been trying to understand why my computer access keeps failing during critical documentation periods." Destiny's laugh was bitter, completely foreign from the warm mentor I thought I knew. "Don't play naive, Patricia. It doesn't suit you." She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more threatening than shouting. "You have no idea what you're interfering with. This hospital runs on more than just patient care. There are financial realities that idealistic nurses like you don't understand." "Financial realities like fraudulent billing?" The words escaped before I could stop them, and I watched her face transform from calculated confidence to something approaching panic. "You don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "And even if you think you do, who's going to believe you? I've been here 15 years. I trained half the nursing staff. My reputation is impeccable." The threat was clear, but it also revealed her desperation. "Your reputation is built on using other nurses' credentials to commit fraud," I said, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. "Gregory and I have the access logs, Destiny. We have proof." What happened next shattered any remaining illusion about the woman I had trusted. Her face contorted with rage, and she stepped aggressively. "You have nothing. And if you try to destroy me, I'll make sure you never work in healthcare again. I know people at every major hospital system in the state. One word from me about your instability and paranoid accusations, and you'll be finished." The conference room felt smaller suddenly. The familiar space transformed into something claustrophobic and threatening. But beneath my fear, I felt something else, a clarity that came from finally seeing the truth. This wasn't the mentor who had guided my early career. This was someone who had systematically exploited the trust of her colleagues for personal gain. "I'm reporting this to Catherine Martinez on Monday," I said, moving toward the door. "And to the compliance department." Destiny's voice followed me, sharp and venomous. "You'll regret this, Patricia, I promise you that." The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Gregory and I met Saturday morning at a coffee shop near the hospital, spreading our across a corner table like investigators building a case. The documentation was overwhelming: months of fraudulent entries, unauthorized procedure codes, and billing manipulations that painted a clear picture of systematic fraud. "She's been careful," Gregory said, pointing to patterns in the access logs. "Never too much at once, always spread across different departments. But the timing is what gives her away. Every fraudulent entry corresponds to periods when she had legitimate access to another nurse's workstation." I studied the printouts, seeing my own name attached to billing codes I had never entered, procedures I had never authorized. The violation felt personal and professional simultaneously. She hadn't just stolen money from the hospital, she had stolen my professional integrity. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Catherine Martinez listened to our presentation with the poker face of an experienced administrator, asking pointed questions about RNE and taking detailed notes. Her expression remained neutral until we showed her the pattern of fraudulent entries attached to multiple nursing credentials. "This is serious," she said finally, her voice carrying the gravity of someone who understood the full implications. "If what you're alleging is true, we're looking at potential criminal charges, not just employment termination." The investigation moved swiftly once set in motion. Hospital security was quietly notified, and Destiny's access was suspended pending a full audit. The compliance department launched a comprehensive review of billing records, and external investigators were brought in to ensure objectivity. Destiny's reaction to the suspension was explosive. She stormed into Catherine's office demanding explanations, her composure finally cracking under the pressure of exposure. Her threats became more desperate, her attempts to discredit me more frantic. She accused me of jealousy, of trying to destroy her career out of spite, of being unstable and unreliable. But this spoke louder than her protests. The audit revealed the full scope of her fraud, over $200,000 in false billings spread across 18 months. The electronic trail was undeniable, each fraudulent entry time-stamped and linked to her unauthorized access of colleagues' workstations. The hardest part was watching the impact on other staff members. Nurses who had unknowingly been implicated in the fraud struggled with feelings of violation and betrayal. The cardiac unit, once a model of teamwork and trust, became tense and suspicious as everyone questioned what they had missed, how they had been deceived. Gregory became my anchor during those difficult weeks, his steady presence and unwavering support helping me navigate the emotional aftermath of betrayal. "You did the right thing," he reminded me repeatedly. "She was destroying careers and stealing from patients. Someone had to stop her." The formal charges came 3 weeks after our initial report. Destiny was arrested at her home, the local news covering the story with headlines about healthcare fraud and betrayed trust. Watching her led away in handcuffs felt surreal. This was the woman who had taught me to read cardiac rhythms, who had celebrated my first successful code blue, who had been like a second mother during my early years at Pinewood. The trial proceedings moved through the system with bureaucratic efficiency. Destiny's defense attempted to paint her as a victim of hospital pressure and inadequate compensation. But the gra was overwhelming. The systematic nature of her fraud, the calculated use of colleagues' credentials, and the sheer scope of her deception painted a picture of someone who had turned healthcare into a personal profit center. Her sentencing brought a mixture of closure and sadness: 5 years in federal prison, full restitution to the hospital, and permanent exclusion from healthcare employment. The woman who had once been my mentor was led away to begin a sentence that would effectively the career she had spent decades building. The cardiac unit slowly began to heal, but the scars remained visible. New protocols were implemented for computer access and billing oversight. Trust, once freely given among colleagues, became something that had to be earned and verified. The easy camaraderie that had defined our workplace was replaced by a more cautious professionalism.